Hello, my brown sister all around the world. Wakanda speaking to you. Welcome to Wakanda Frappuccino. So, you're all wondering, where have I been? How come I haven't uploaded any video for a while? The reason I haven't uploaded a video is because we all saw that video of Mr. Floyd's death. And that video is nothing but cold-blooded murder. This was a modern-day lynching. And it's not just George Floyd who got killed by the police officer. Breonna Taylor got killed.
Breonna loved life, and she loved to help people, and she loved a family. She didn't deserve what they did to her.
Tamika Palmer is Breonna Taylor's mother. The 26-year-old was an EMT working in emergency rooms at 2 hospitals and helping respond to the coronavirus outbreak. But just after midnight on March 13th, police shot Taylor at least 8 times, killing her in the apartment she shared with her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. The lawsuit against the officers claims the suspect they were searching for was already in custody. Taylor's family alleges the officers, wearing plain clothes, did not identify themselves.
Ahmaud Arbery got killed.
McMichael and his father Gregory, a former police officer, are accused of gunning down the young, unarmed black man during what police say the men called a citizen's arrest.
So, and all the other people down the list got killed by the police officer.
The United States is often called the Great Melting Pot, but it's a country that's struggled with race relations throughout its history, and still does today. A 2015 CNN and Kaiser Family Foundation poll found about half of Americans think racism is a big problem, one that doesn't seem to be getting better. 2/3 said racial tensions in the United States had increased over the last decade. More than half of blacks said they had experienced some form of racial discrimination in their lifetime.
If you misbehave in school, you might be punished more harshly than your white classmates, even if you broke the same rule. And when you apply to colleges, your disciplinary record might make it harder to get in. If you're black in America and you're looking for a job, you might have to look harder. Job applicants with black-sounding names receive fewer callbacks than those with white-sounding names. And if you get the job, keep in mind that you'll be working just as hard as your white colleagues, but might make 30% less than them. If you're black in America and you want to buy a house, your agent might show you fewer properties than his white clients. And if you manage to find your dream home, you might have a harder time getting a bank loan. If you're black in America, you might get pulled over by the police more than your white friends. If that happens, police are more likely to search your car, and they're more likely to use force against you if there's a misunderstanding. If you're arrested and convicted of a crime, your sentence might be harsher too.
We've just seen it over and over and over and over again, injustice being mishandled and dealt with in the wrong way. And it all culminates up to this moment now.
Many of us are wondering, how many more Black and brown people will be killed before police departments are held accountable and change behavior? Derek Chauvin, one of the officers involved in the death of George Floyd, had at least 17 misconduct complaints against him. He received no discipline other than oral or written remand. Multiple research articles have found that few citizen complaints are actually sustained. Research has also found that a small percentage of officers account for most of the complaints, and the most common complaints are excessive force or discourtesy. Since 2012, more than 2,600 misconduct complaints have been filed against the Minneapolis police, but only 12 have resulted in an officer being disciplined. So why aren't police held accountable for misconduct? Well, there are a few main ways police are protected from discipline.
One of the big barriers to holding police accountable is that we don't have national standards for how police ought to behave. Case law varies from state to state, but also training and recruitment and discipline and procedures vary tremendously from agency to agency. And what we benefit from, and I think what it's time for, is clear federal standards for how police ought to act and how they ought to behave.
48 cities allow officers to appeal disciplinary decisions to an arbitrator, allowing many fired officers to be reinstated. The Pioneer Press found that the Minnesota board reinstated 46% of fired officers.
A combination of the appeals process and the very narrow grounds that exist for termination in a lot of union contracts prevent the cities from actually doing so. It sets an example that you can get away with a lot in certain municipalities, and it also keeps bad cops on the force.
Police unions also play a big part in protecting officers.
I think it's important for police to have unions, but what police unions do is make it very, very difficult in many cases to discipline officers and to terminate officers.
The Minneapolis police union contracts. This includes allowing officers to overturn discipline through arbitration, erasing unsubstantiated violations from an officer's record, and giving paid leave and legal defense to officers involved in misconduct. The Minneapolis Police Union, in addition to various other police unions, did not respond for comment.
There are 18,000 police agencies in the United States, and so one of the things that follows from that is that when a police officer resigns in lieu of termination or is fired, there's no records management system that allows other agencies to know exactly what happened, and there are police officers who will agency hop. One of the things that we'd really benefit from is transparent national registry that lets us know when an officer is terminated or commits serious misconduct or corruption, that lets us know who that officer is and prevents other agencies from hiring that officer.
Research has found that when outcomes of complaint investigations are reviewed by a civilian oversight board as opposed to the Internal Affairs Board alone, the complaints are significantly more likely to be sustained.
I think internal affairs investigators are good for most police investigations, but only if their work is transparent enough that non-police can have insight into what they're doing. But when it comes to things like the use of lethal force, you need an outside investigator.